it's time to get on to assembling the tender, which has all of its main parts in this one half of the sleeve here. So I guess I'll just go ahead and get to cutting them out. We'll see how this goes. So far the castings aren't looking too bad. I've only taken the floor out so far. You can see that the shape of the holes is actually decent for once. They actually countersunk them for the screws, so I don't have to do that myself. I still have to do all the screw tapping though, but at least it's not as bad as what I was seeing with the engine. The detail on the tender sides doesn't look too bad. I see a little nick right there. I'll see if I can fill that in, cover that up somehow. If not, at least it's not too big of a defect. On the top of the tender, the rivet detail is a lot less pronounced than it is on the sides, so this may not look quite as good, but at least it'll have the steps and some other details on top, so that'll help to at least take the tension off of the rest of it. I don't like how they just kind of put the wire on top of everything else before vacuum forming it like that. It really would have been better if they just did like the other manufacturers, used brass wire, so then they wouldn't have to put it in this kind of seal to protect against rust or anything. Would have been a lot nicer. So the steps here, I have to wonder why they didn't just cast them directly onto the top of the tender body. I mean, it's not like they're going to get assembled anywhere else. And with their spin casting method, it really could have been done very easily. Well, to start off, I guess I'll just get on to cleaning the parts up. Shouldn't be too difficult this time around. The tender floor has the holes already drilled in it for the screws, but looks like I'll have to do that completely myself for the actual body to fit on there. Some areas have tabs that are a little thick, but thanks to the softness of the metal, it's not hard to file them off. So far to me, this is looking like it'll be the highest quality part of the kit, but I'm not going to jinx it and say that it'll be easy, because then something is more likely to go wrong. Okay, the parts are all cleaned up and ready to put together. And as I lined the sides up with the top, that is not even close to the bend it should have. So I think the way I'm going to start this is I'm going to put the sides onto the tender frame, make sure those are aligned with what the width of the top should be, and then I think I'll be able to at least solder the front together, and then I can form the top to the shape that it needs. Alright, so little change of plans there after kind of trying to work with the parts. I'm starting by soldering the sides to the front here, making sure it's as square as possible. Then they can at least hold their structure while I work on the rest of it. So I'll just get some solder onto the iron there. Drop some flux into the joint. Make sure that stands up straight. I'm just very gently touching it up to the parts to make sure that they don't move around. So liquid metal alone is actually enough to transfer heat to the parts as much as needed. Okay, now that seems like it's starting to flow through. It's not a perfect joint. I'll have to do a little rework there just to get the sides nice and flat, but it's at least a good start now. And with that in place, it'll actually be a lot easier to get the rest of this right where it needs to be. Okay, the sides and front seem to be formed pretty well to each other now. I think I got that nice and square. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to reshape the top here to fit where it needs to go. To do that, I'm just going to bend it by hand a little at a time until it sits correctly between the sides. So just a little here and there like that. This metal is pretty easy to bend by hand. As I go along, it'll sit more and more flat until the fit is right where it needs to be. Alright, so after some careful bending and filing in a few areas, I think I finally got a good fit here. Drops right in place, seems to be square with the edges, at least for the most part. So now I will solder the tabs together here, a couple little joints at the front, and then I can finish shaping the back and get that soldered. So when you're soldering parts like this, it can actually be easier to put them on a wood block instead of a metal plate like I have, because the wood block, it won't pull heat away from the metal parts, so the joint will heat up faster. If I had a wood block on hand, then I would use it, but for now, the metal plate is what I have available. There we go. That's joining together now. Okay, now I can move on to the other side. And that turned out looking pretty good. So I'll just wait for that to cool down a little, finish shaping the back and solder that, and then I can clean up the edges. I think that turned out looking all right. There are going to be some visible seams around here, some slight loss of rivet detail in a couple spots, but I think that'll overall look pretty good when it's painted and finished. So now I need to get on to drilling the holes. So I need to get that lined up about there. The instructions said 1/8 of an inch. So I'll just hold that location. I'll start the first hole while holding these tightly together. I'll change that out for the tap. This is a shallow hole, so it should just go right through there. Yep, that was easy. Now once this one's screwed in, the rest of the holes will be easy. Okay. Make sure that's all lined up and square. I'll do the same here where I just kind of start the holes, but I don't finish them while the body is still on. Okay, that's the last one of those. Hopefully I got these all aligned correctly. I think I did. So I can only put in 3 screws for now, because if you remember in the first video, one of the screws broke while I was trying to use their methods of doing the screw tapping. But 3 will still be enough to hold that together tightly, so I may just leave that one out. But yeah, that's looking good. So I might as well just look at putting on some of these main castings, like the coal bed. For these parts, I'll just use glue. So a little bit there, a little bit there, a little more back there, and press that down. Okay. Now the walkway. Looks like they show it on the left side. Right, because there's some holes here for putting handrails. So this aligns with the handrails. As for the exact location, looks like the top step is supposed to be just about flush with the top of the tinder. So it'll go about here. And the reverse light goes, let's see, it looks like it'll go about here. It's actually not sitting quite straight on there, is it? Ah, I need to file a tab off the bottom. not a tab, just some leftover flash from molding. Would have been nice if it was a tab. Would have made alignment easier. Okay, so the light goes between the two handrail posts here, so right in the center of that deck from the look of it. And there's the water hatch right here. This one, I do need to drill a new hole. Yeah, the 16th bit should work. Drop a glue and set it down. Now for the pilot, looks like they actually got the drilling locations in the correct spots. So I'm going to use the bit for the 080 tap here. Let's drill those out. I need to drill those a little bit larger. That one bar doesn't quite meet the bottom of the frame. I don't think there's much I can do about that. Yeah, so I'll just put the glue onto the two middle tabs. That'll be enough to hold it. Okay, so that's it for the main body. So now I'll work on the trucks here. For these, I think it'll mostly just be some cleanup. So these are actually arched on the top. If I leave that alone, it's going to cause the tender to kind of flop from side to side as it runs along. So definitely need to straighten these out. And to do that, I'll just bend them down like that. Now let's see if it works to just crimp these. If something goes wrong, I can just solder them, but we'll see if this works. So just keep going back and forth like this. Kind of gripping one corner at a time while squeezing the tab opposite from the corner. So I can get out the tender wheels. So these were kept well preserved in their packaging. No cleaning required. Nice and shiny. So I'll just, well, first things first, put a little oil on there. So now I just need to make sure that these are on the same side, insulated and grounded. Get them lined up in there. This might be a little more complicated to crimp down since the wheels are now inside of there. I think I can still do it. Well, the crimping's not working on this side, so I think I'm going to have to go ahead with the solder. I don't want to use glue because well, I want to make sure that these parts are fully grounded with good electrical contact. I'm actually gonna, yeah, I should file that side down too. How's this one doing? Yeah, it's still slipping out kind of easy, so I'll solder both sides. It was worth a shot with the crimping. Okay, one side. I'll put the insulated wheels on the side that's done. Then there's less risk of accidentally melting those insulators, which I definitely don't want to do. They seem to be rolling just fine in there. Okay, that seems to be holding together nicely. And it's sitting nice and flat too, so that should track well. Now, as for mounting the trucks, looks like I need to tap these holes out. These use 256 screws, so got the 256 tap here. Just oil that a bit. It looks like I'll have to do these a little at a time. I should be getting close to the end now. In this case, I think that's actually as far as I want to tap it. Because then when I put the screw in, I think that'll help it to stay in place a little better than if I just tapped all the way through. Yeah, so I'm starting to get some resistance there. And that'll help the screw stay in place a little better instead of just putting a drop of glue inside. Okay, so it's got some movement around there to help with tracking, but it's not going to be backing out on its own. All right, I've got both trucks on there, and it seems like it's going to roll just fine. It's actually moving along pretty freely. Nice and smooth too. So now I'll just glue on these toolbox details, then I'll get it connected to the engine and we'll see how things run. I think I'll connect these to the tender body instead of the floor. So just drop glue on the back, kind of line up the sides there and push it back. Okay. So now here's the drawbar, just a basic fiber one. And on the engine, it actually fits into the frame here. There's a tab inside. And that is not going to work at all, is it? If I use this drawbar, it won't be able to go around any curve at all. So I think what I'll do instead is 3D print a new one. Alright, so to make the drawbar, I'm using Fusion 360. This is a pretty nice program. It's available free to anyone who's just using it as a hobby program for personal use. So I'll start by making a sketch there. Take the line tool, and I already took the measurements off the original drawbar to know exactly what I need. So length, 22 millimeters. Now the circle tool. Make a couple circles here. The holes need to be, let's see, it was 3.5. So do that twice, once at each end. Then make 2 more circles for the outer part of it. Now, as for the width of the drawbar, I think I'm going to make that, I think 4 millimeters will be good there. So just go out 2 millimeters from each side of that line. Draw it out to each end of those circles. Yeah, that one didn't quite connect. Yeah, just do that. That'll be fine. Now this, and once more there. Okay. Now finish the sketch. And I need to hold control while I do this, so. Okay, I've got the whole sketch selected. So now just right click and pull that out. Original drawbar is 1.3 millimeters, so I'll make this 1.2. Just to make sure it has free movement in that slot. Now to get the file ready for print, I'll just export that. as an STL. That'll take a moment. Now to actually make it printable, I've gone into another free program called Cura. So I'll just open that 3D file. That's placed on there in its actual size. And I don't need to do anything with that since it's such a simple file. I have it set to 0.1 millimeter print layer, so 12 layers, that'll be pretty strong. Slice that, and then I'll save that to the USB drive in order to put that into the printer. Okay, so for this printer it was actually a micro SD, not a USB, but close enough anyway, right? One of the nice things about small, simple parts like this is that they only take a few minutes to finish. In fact, this one's only got about one more layer to go. And there it is, brand new drawbar. See how this thing works. Okay, so it looks like that's going to fit nicely into the slot and be able to rotate back and forth. So get that in place. I just need to loosen the bottom plate here. Don't need to take it off entirely. Oh, this screw I'll take out just to make it easier. The other two screws I only need to loosen a little bit. And you can see the tab inside of there where the drawbar fits. Just like that. Okay, now with that in there, it can still swivel freely, so that's good. The 3D printed plastic, it's a little more flexible than that fiber piece, but that's still more than strong enough for this model. Now to connect the two, first thing I need to do is, let's see, drop a screw through here, then use one of these washers right here. And then this will screw into the tender right there. This is another hole that I went ahead and tapped beforehand, 256. There we go, getting that tightened down. And it looks like everything is still moving just fine. Okay, I think this is finally ready for its first test run. Okay, place that onto the little test track here. Seems like the tender might lift up a little on the back of the engine. I think I should maybe fix that before I actually try to run it. Oh, might as well power it on real quick and see if it'll work at all. And hey, there it goes. Basically zero traction though. It's only resting on the front axle. So I'll get that little issue fixed and then we'll take it to the layout and see how it does. Okay, I put this little piece of brass tubing onto the screw, so that'll help the head to sit lower and give the drawbar more room to move, so maybe it won't lift up the engine anymore. Alright, let's see if it works with no derailments or short circuits. Seems to be off to a good start. There's 6 volts, half speed. Wait for the switch. See how it does at full speed. It definitely flies along, but it's staying on the track. And it's using less than 0.2 amps, so it's pretty efficient. Now, how about reverse? So far, so good. Okay, reverse was just fine. Of course, the hardest part is making it through the switch. I don't know if the electrical pickup will take it through, but we'll see. Oh. Slight stop there, but it made it. And that's the 18-inch radius. Standard train's that size. The short wheelbase is going to give us some problems with electrical pickup, so I might add some wipers later, but for now, this thing is working. It's doing great. Let's get back onto the other track. Made it just fine. Well, I am definitely happy to see that. Well, with that, all of the major components are now assembled, so the worst is out of the way. All that's left now is really pretty standard stuff: super detailing, painting, and the final finishing.